Star Wars. Is it bad that I'm not excited by that theme anymore? I actually wasn't too excited for Solo, a Star Wars story in general. I did want this movie to be good. After hearing stories about fired directors hiding dailies and sending the lead actor to acting classes, I was starting to root for this movie as something that could be a fresh story in a franchise that is plagued by stagnation and expectations. Solo, a Star Wars story wasn't a disaster, but it was mediocre. One of the issues that this movie has had since its inception is the question that prequels have to answer. Do we really want to know this? Some franchises have a good answer to this question. Star Wars, though, really wants to pretend it does, but we all know that Star Wars does not have a good history of prequels. I don't think we really wanted to know what Han Solo did when he was younger. The character as we have known him for decades is an icon, and his story is done. He was not terribly complex. What would a prequel origin story give us other than fan service? That may be one of the reasons why this movie has underperformed. Another big factor is that this was released less than 6 months after the last Star Wars movie, which was a contentious one to say the least. I will give the movie credit that it wasn't just fan service and an excuse plot. There was an actual story told with fan service sprinkled in carefully. The pacing is a big problem, especially in the first act. The first act is rough, and the cinematography compounded on that. This is a visually ugly movie. The trope brown is realistic is in full force here. There's so many browns, blues, grays, thick shadows, and lots of fog throughout the whole movie. These visuals are more appropriate for a gritty war drama, not an origin story for a lovable space rogue. All of the first act is murky, which sucks out the humor in moments that should be funny or lighthearted. Still, there are good moments throughout the film, but it's uneven overall. Now it's time to get into spoilers. If you don't want anything spoiled, skip to this time code. We're shown how Han meets Chewbacca, and the interactions between those two are the best moments in the film. These characters are fun and likable. The other characters, however, are not fun, likable, or interesting. Again, part of that comes from knowing that they don't matter later. Case in point, Han has a love interest. Her name is Kira, and since it's a Star Wars, her name is spelled like this. She is his girlfriend in the start of the movie, but they are separated when she is captured while they are trying to escape their home planet. He joins the Empire military to become a pilot, and then they jump 3 years into the future. So most of those scenes before that jump feel pretty unnecessary. Also, we find out that Solo isn't Han's actual surname. An Imperial officer just gave him that surname because he didn't have one. Again, did we really want to know this? Did anyone in the world think that a character in Star Wars couldn't logically have Solo as a surname? And here's an addendum to the prequel question. No answer is better than a bad answer. Again, Star Wars has done that a lot. Kira shows up in the start of the second act with a makeover and a completely different wig and personality. I didn't recognize her at first. She seems like a completely different character, and that can be blamed on how badly the first act set up her character. At this point, to me, she became Space Vesper Lynn. Han's relationship with her is supposed to be the heart of the movie, I think, but they don't have much chemistry. Also, Woody Harrelson is in the main cast as Tobias Beckett. I don't like this character. First, let's go over my superficial reason. His hair was super distracting. I kept thinking about Bruce Willis's terrible toupee from the movie Surrogates, and that's not a good thing, honey. I've seen corn with better hair. Now for the actual reasons. He turns out to be a twist villain. For gangster movies and crime movies, double crosses are staple, and yes, this movie does focus on the crime elements of the Star Wars universe, but Tobias Beckett's turn did not work. He wasn't interesting enough or built up effectively for that kind of twist. This move feels like a Disney mandate because Disney has been addicted to twist villains for years now. Frozen, Zootopia, a few Pixar films. Twist villains are not good villains. Not just that, they aren't good characters. When a character turns out to be a twist villain, everything you learned about that character becomes pointless. Tobias losing his girlfriend? Irrelevant. His bonding with Han? Filler. I'll give him this. Tobias Beckett is marginally more interesting than a generic gangster villain they fight at the end. Well, it is a prequel to a story with one of the most memorable villains in cinema, so they probably thought they didn't need to bother with writing an interesting villain for this film. And then there's Darth Maul's cameo. So Space Vesperlin turns out to have been working for Darth Maul the whole time, and him showing up as a hologram was the point when I went from being disappointed in the movie to actively hating it. Darth Maul is the Boba Fett from the prequel trilogy. Both characters are just cool designs and then die undignified deaths. But since the fans love them, they keep coming back. I hate Darth Maul more than Boba Fett. He is the poison to any story where he appears. His appearance in Star Wars The Clone Wars was the point when I lost my investment in the show. Ugh. In Solo, he is here to provide a sequel/Marvel-esque expanded universe tease and a prequel origin story to a character created decades before him. I don't know what he and Space Vesperlin are going to do after this, and I don't care. I really want to like this movie, but the negatives outweigh the positives. It does tell its own story and keeps the cheap references to a minimum, but the bad pacing, ugly cinematography, and lousy minor characters make it a slog. I can't give it a recommendation. It's a fine way to spend 2 hours in air conditioning during the hot summer, but that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all next time.